So I'm going to talk to you today about the role technology's played in modernising our resourcing function. And I wanted just to give you a bit of a case study, take you through what we've done, why we've done what we've done, and then some of the lessons that we've learnt along the way. So if I start with why there was a need for us to modernise the way that we recruit. We all know the world's changing, and it was mentioned earlier about looking for data strategists and data scientists. And so we're recruiting for skills that we've never had to recruit to before, and skills that didn't even exist 12 months ago. Our workforce is really diverse at BP, from daily workers in Brazil who are taken to and from work in a bus, through to our traders up in 20 Canada Square in Canary Wharf, and individuals who don't even think of BP as an employer of choice. And our audience is changing as well. So in the next 10 years, we all know that the workforce will be made up entirely of millennials, and that Gen Z is the technology generation. And they expect to be engaged in a more digital way, using new technology that reflects the organisation that they want to work for. And one of my colleagues gave me some really interesting stats around Gen Z. We know that 50% of Gen Z spend 10 hours a day online, which I was like, how do they find the time to do that? And 50% of them say that their social lives are purely made up of social media. And 62% are more comfortable in expressing themselves using digital platforms than they are in a personal situation, which shows the need for us to transform the way that we're recruiting. And a big thing for us as well is obviously they really truly believe in equality. So we wanted to make sure that we recruit a workforce that's representative of the countries that we operate in, and create an inclusive environment for them to work and for us to celebrate diversity. So at BP, we started modernising our function. I say here at the beginning of 2016, but I'm sure we've been there since 2015. It feels like it for sure anyway. A business that was we increasingly needed simplification, speed, agility, and quality. We recognised we had tremendous potential in achieving competitive advantage by creating standardised processes, tools, and an organisation that had the right skills that we needed for best-in-class resourcing function. So we're in the process of building a stable foundation, and by 2019, we intend to have a global function that utilises global processes, supported by global technology, and integrates effectively with our HR platform, which is Workday, and an organisation with the right people in the right roles in the right countries. So once our foundation's built, we'll then start to continuously work to improve the delivery by enhancing the technology and capabilities that we have within our function. And all of this is done and underpinned by the 4 E's: experience, effectiveness, efficiency, and empowerment. So what does that mean at BP? So we're creating a richer experience for recruiters by giving them easier to use and intuitive HR systems, which will integrate into the other systems that we use. And I'll go into a bit more detail about what they are in a moment. But this, we hope, will free up recruiters' time to focus on value-added services and give a better candidate experience to each of our candidates. That experience will also mean we can give them a more consistent user experience across the organisation. And what I mean by that is BP is made up of lots of different companies, and at the moment, the way that we recruit and the processes that we use are different. So you could go for an engineering role in one part of the organisation and have a totally different experience for the same role in a different part of the organisation. So that was really important for us. So that's how our experience will change. We want to be effective in improving the quality and the diversity of the hires, and we believe we can then do that through the technology that we use. And we also want to be able to have access to advanced and reliable reporting and analytics. And this takes us right back to one of the first presentations we saw today, which talked about the importance of the analytics and the metrics that you get to ensure that we're effective in the way that we attract and engage candidates. We'll be efficient by reducing the time to hire through standardising these processes and having the right structure and capabilities and by using the right technology. And we'll empower our people By giving our teams the opportunity, by making things more effective and efficient, we'll be able to empower them to make key decisions through the recruitment process. We thought it sounded quite simple, to be honest, but as you can imagine, it's taken a lot longer than we thought it would. So to be able to do this, technology is absolutely key in helping us to meet our objectives. What you're seeing now, this is our technology landscape for 2019 and beyond. Technology and data integration will make it easier for recruiters and enhance the candidate experience. It'll allow our recruiters to engage with candidates faster and move candidates seamlessly through the process. Previously, all of the systems that we used worked in silo. They didn't speak. We just kind of had bits of middleware and a few bandages here and there, which some of you may be familiar with. But the idea is that if we can get them to talk to each other, it will help that candidate experience. One of the things that we also believe is that it will help us to tell our brand story to candidates throughout the candidate journey, where traditionally our brand really only came through in our attraction and engagement. It didn't really start at the beginning from the job description right through to the onboarding process. So my team, who are responsible for talent attraction, would be the ones that would make sure that we were selling BP in the way that we wanted to talk about it. However, then we handed it off to recruiters. We had no idea how they talked about the organisation. For all we know, they could have just said, do you want a job or not? Really ruining that experience. So we're using technology to really help us to tell our story effectively and the right story. And as part of this, just as a side note, we have a new employer brand that we're launching this year, which is aligned with our corporate strategy to ensure that there's a consistency in what we're saying externally to what is happening internally. We believe by using technology, we can improve that candidate experience by shortening the time to hire, but also allowing our candidates to engage, us to engage with our candidates, whether they're successful or not. And some of you will probably be familiar with this, but our recruiters are so busy, they don't have time to respond to everybody that applies to our roles. Whereas technology will allow us to speak to all candidates, really limiting that damage that may be done through the employer brand. And we'll be able to automate some of those basic tasks. So for example, you'll see here the piece about interview scheduling and event management that previously has been done by our coordinators or administrators. And by being able to automate this, we'll be able to really focus on those value-added activities throughout the recruitment cycle, again, making sure that the candidate experience that we're offering is a rich candidate experience. Because for BP, all our candidates are also consumers. So we want to keep them happy and we want them to be wedded to the BP brand. I talk about this landscape and I look at the technology that we're going to be implementing. But it can also damage the experience. And throughout this process, we've been really mindful of that. Therefore, when we've created this kind of workflow, one of the things that we've been looking at is to make sure that we give candidates the right amount of technology mixed with that human touch. Changing jobs, and we were talking about on the table over here earlier, it's such an emotive thing to do. Therefore, we need to get that balance right so people will see the human factor and the human element of BP, and so that they'll make the right choice to join us rather than one of our competitors. So we'll be using technology, and we already do, to help us attract candidates using tools such as Percolate, which is up in the top left there, which is our social media piece. I don't know if many of you are familiar with Percolate. Brilliant. So you'll know that one of the great things about Percolate is it allows us to schedule our social media posts. And again, there's a member in my team previously who every single day, every morning, had to update our channels. But now that person can come in on a Monday and schedule it for the week, even into a month in advance. We'll be using programmatic advertising to engage with our audiences to build that deeper and richer picture of BP. So rather than just serving jobs, we're following them around, getting them engaged with life at BP before we even start to talk about opportunities. And again, this comes back to what candidate ID we're talking about, which is everybody's wants and the needs of them is different. So by using programmatic, we can make sure that we're sending the right message through the right channel at the right time. We'll also, though, be attending events to engage with our audience on a face-to-face basis. So we're humanising BP, but we'll still use tools like Rexaloo and Yellow to continue those conversations offline and continue the conversation on a regular basis. But ultimately, we'll be driving all our candidates to our career site, where we use technology such as realistic job previews, which again, some of you may be familiar with. It's a great tool to help filter out candidates and make sure they fit for us and it fits for them, rather than just go through to apply. And likewise, a tool that we've created called the Degree Matcher. So graduates can discover what roles their degree is suitable for. And once candidates press the apply button and they don't go on to finish the application, we also use tools to retarget them and to remind them why they considered applying for the role in the first place and encourage them to finish the application. One of the new areas for us, which has been interesting to hear about today, is from a sourcing perspective and about how artificial intelligence for talent sourcing needs to be the right data and not mountains of it. At BP, we've got a tendency to do tons and tons of research, and so we map where people are and we've got these databases, and then we can't really tell any type of story because we just don't know where to start. So the whole point of automating the way that we source candidates is to make sure that we use the right data, because the matches that we find through using AI will only be as good as the data that we've got. Therefore, the need for good workforce planning and good job descriptions is even more important than ever before for us. And actually, we found that by not using the right tools and the mountains of content that we have, we're missing non-traditional candidates that will actually be suitable for the jobs as we move to need some more of those digital roles and the digital skills that we don't have at the moment. From a sourcing perspective, we're looking at tools like Talent Neuron that can help match where your skills and your talent are, and that can feed directly into our CRM to start to help to build the right talent that we need. And underpinning everything we do, not only is our people, but is also the metrics that we're building. And we're looking at up to the minute metrics, whereas before, some of you may have seen it, we've got static dashboards on PowerPoint slides. It doesn't really tell us anything. So we're using organisations to help us build those up to the minute metrics so we can see what message, what channel, where our audience is, and what times of the day they want us to talk to them. And of course, you know, other tools that we're using is about making sure our ATS is up to speed and can do what it needs. And also the fact of looking about from diversity, how can we use tools like Textio to help make sure that we're using the right language and tone in our job descriptions to appeal to a wide, diverse audience. But of course, this is only going to be possible if we've got the right people and the right processes in place to make the technology work. Technology is great, but we need the right people and the right process to make sure we use the best of it. So I've talked a lot about technology there, but I think I wanted to just touch on some of the lessons that we've learned. Modernisation for us is definitely a marathon and not a sprint. And John talked about this as well, about how people think it's quite easy to fix these things. It's been a real emotive process for our stakeholders. It's taken a lot longer than we expected to get them to see the benefits of change. Because we're moving to an organisation structure where we'll be recruiting by discipline rather than segments, our segment HRVPs were treated, they all sat on golden thrones, and now they're just going to be part of a discipline-led approach. So they kind of feel like they're having that personalisation piece taken away. So we've really had to take them on the journey as to why the candidate is at the top and forefront of this rather than they are, and what the benefits is to the organisation. We've had to show them and persuade them to use tools like HireView and give them examples of how this has worked and where we've done pilots to get them and to remove some of the concerns that they had about automating that process. And I think for me and the rest of the resourcing team, we didn't realise quite how complex this would be. Originally, and this is going to sound really naive, again to John's point, there were 2 people that were working on this project full-time across all of our countries, all 36 of them, all of our countries across all of our processes, from grads through to experienced hire. And then what we would do is we'd bring people in to support on projects, and it would be ad hoc support from the resourcing team. Obviously, in 2014, the oil price dropped, which meant our recruitment levels went lower. So we know we've been working to 2014 recruitment levels. We're now back up, and volumes have increased, but the people haven't, so our recruiters haven't. So as our recruiters got busy again with business as usual, they became too stretched to take on any further workload. So we now have a team of 8 people around the world who are dedicated to delivering the modernisation project. And we're constantly reviewing the project plan to see where we might need more resources, or we might need to second people over to finish off landing a process. It's also the resourcing modernisation piece is part of our wider HR mod piece. So we're implementing Workday across the whole of HR for business-facing HR, people services, HR services, and resourcing. And so we had to ensure that we were consulting with works councils in Europe and especially in Germany at the same time as one team, as legislation dictated that we did that. Therefore, this meant we had to align ourselves with the wider HR project. So resourcing was agile, and we wanted it all finished now. Actually, our timelines have slipped by about 12 months. So a lesson learned there for us was make sure we knew our HR legislation. And we've made some really great headway, actually. We've implemented a new recruiter interface and an app for our ATS. We're piloting our talent search project to identify and source internal candidates for our roles. And we're already utilising social and programmatic advertising to source and attract candidates. But the big piece will be in April 2019, where we will have 3 global processes in place to replace 40 existing processes. So we will then move to field-based hiring, graduate hiring, and experienced hiring, instead of having 40 different processes and experiences for our candidates around the world. And we're making sure that that is fair and transparent. And we're implementing initiatives such as what we call rules of the road internally to make sure that anybody that is part of the recruitment process has been through and is on interview panels, has been through training such as inclusive leadership and unconscious bias training. We'll have one global applicant tracking system across 68 countries, and we'll be fully leveraging video interview technology to engage a new generation and applicants to make sure that we can cut down on our T&E costs. We're leveraging interview scheduling technology to reduce admin support and allow them to be focusing on added value services. And we'll be standing up a new organisation. And not only will we be recruiting discipline, but by discipline, but our organisation will be a hub and spoke model. So BP at the moment has a high level of recruiters in the US and UK and some elsewhere in the world. What we will have is a hub model across the US, UK and Asia Pac, with spoke regions such as China and Germany, where legislation and language requirements mean that we need teams on the ground to provide recruitment services. What's also exciting for us is that we'll be creating new roles. So rather than the recruiter roles that we've got now or the talent attraction roles, we're looking at process owner roles, which will kind of govern and police the fact that we don't move away from these 3 processes back to the 40 that we had before. And also segment-specific roles where we're making sure that we've got that piece where the VPs were, uncomfortable that we're moving to disciplines, but to help take us on that journey so we're successful in what we do. And then by 2019, end of 2019, we'll have updated our career portal, our career site. We'll be bringing in pipelining tools, and we'll be looking at talent market intelligence as well. And then as we move into 2020 and onwards, if technology continues at the pace that it is, I have absolutely no idea what will be going on because I think the opportunities will be endless.